Hello there. It's been a while since I gave any talks, and it's been due to my busyness and travel and the time off I've had for reading and um, doing practical stuff. Uh, Today it's inspired by this book, Imprimatur by Monaldi and Sorti, a husband and wife who are historians and music lovers, and they've written this book from the 17th century. It's from 1683 exactly, 9 days in September in 1683, where a boy working in a tavern experienced a lot of really exciting stuff in those days. And I would really, I see the book as very inspiring, and would advise anyone to try and get it and read it. It's set in a historic frame, but it can be read also with the glasses of modern times as well. Even though it's not directly related to the issues of today, it is anyhow. It's both a mystery, a historic account, and a lot of pleasure between the line of seeing the human reactions and secretive ways of doing things. So this boy, this young man working in that tavern, um, gets all sort of adventure, and the book is really well written too, with a lot of flourishing language and a lot of um, not so often used words and terminology. It's not because it's difficult to read, it is plain language, but they put some words from time to time that really makes it more enjoyable, and they also use terminology from the time where the doctors used the herbs and different recipes for treating people. Some of it you can laugh off if you know a little bit about medicine and herbs, and you know anything about how to deal with illnesses with modern lenses today. But some of it is also like very basic, what has been continued up until today, the basic for modern medicine, and the vitamins and the herbs they give us here and there in form of pills, goes back to not those days, but goes back through those days as well. So we get an insight in both historical accounts and some kind of medicinal thinking, because the place where these people are, it's a tavern where this boy is giving his memoir from these 9 days. He's meeting 10 or 11 persons who are confined to that place because of the plague. They are suspected from the authorities that they have the plague, or one or two of them have, and so they have to be under lock. They cannot go out anywhere. They are in the piazza in Roma, in a very central place of the old city, not far from where everything is going on at the same time. And the year 1683 is well chosen too, because it was the year the Ottomans, the Turkish Empire at that time, were trying to force open the gates of Vienna. And the gates of Vienna would have opened the whole Europe for the Turks. And as historians say, backwardly looking, well, if the Turks had succeeded in taking Vienna, Europe would have been under the Turkish and Ottomanic and Islamic rule. That is saddening for some people, of course, from the Middle Eastern background. I'm part of those who have heard these talks. People say, "Oh, we wished we would have opened Vienna and have taken over Europe to give it the sense of the Islamic rule and the way of life that has been flourishing in the Middle East." They see it in those lenses. And the Europeans, of course, I'm partly European too, so I've heard exact opposite, that how lucky Europe escaped the Turks, the claws of the Turks and their suppression and their darkened mind and their religion. And so this is how history is. It's not how you think, it's not what you think, it's how you think. And it's also perspectives, as we know. So the very special point for me is that I am between these two cultures, and many like me as well. Today's world, we look back, we can maybe just raise eyebrows or say, what the heck? Well, whoever won, the world would have continued, because neither the Turks nor the European Franks and the, 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 the German Empire at that time that defended Vienna and the Papal State, would have left the world without any civilization. But well, whom do your heart like follow, or who do you wish have seen one? Most people would just define that as part of their culture and legacy. It's like if you are a European, if you're a Catholic, if you're a France a citizen, if you are somewhere in the heart of Europe, knowing its culture and the richness of development and what can you say, exploration, you would you would cheer and say, "Wow, how lucky we got rid of the Turks! They never entered." And looking at it from the other side, they're really sad that they didn't bring their glorious culture and way of living to these Europeans who actually needed more enlightenment. We were in the 1600s, late 1600s, just on the steps of what we call the Enlightenment age in Europe. And it was actually the beginning of the downfall of the Turkish and Arabic and Muslim empires. And then on the other side, in the 1700, mid 1700 to late 1700, the Turks started neglecting all these virtues that really led them on. And they started becoming corrupt and just leaning on their power, suppressing also people. We have this in historic accounts, and that gradually became stronger and stronger until it was in the 1800 and 1900 became very, very obvious that the Turks are only controlling people by raw force. And some people, of course, had their sentimentals towards them, but most people were just controlled by them by raw force. But before that, what made them conquer some part of Europe and the Levant and Northern Africa and had all this influence was some kind of course, brilliance and knowledge, scientific edge. They had something beside the raw force that made them the rulers of the world. This is how the world works. You can't just look at your opponent and say, well, they are just endarkened species. We're glad we got rid of them, because they had something to offer the world. And this is why they see it, the Turks and people who lean towards their sympathies, as a big sad moment that they never conquered Vienna. Anyhow, this book is not about the Turks, neither about Vienna. It's about this boy and his encounters with these 11 people in the tavern. But the book keeps giving you all sort of inspiration along the way, even to your private life. You see how people can die all of a sudden, like one of these people who got really, really ill. How you have a doctor who's really fighting inside that tavern to keep everyone alive and keep them separated. There is this mysterious lady who knows something about magic and with numbers magic and astrology, and has this very, very great charm. They call her the courtesan. And then you have the priest, you have a Jesuit priest, and you have a priest who's not really a priest but a spy. And he's one of the main figures in the story, called Milano. And he's actually a historic figure, and that's what I like about this book from Monaldi and Sorti. It's like they've digged into the historic archives of Europe at that time. Both the tavern were a real place, the Donzello, and the place, and maybe even the tunnels underneath it, and the whole town was connected with tunnels at that time. So you have this very inspiring story about this boy who's observing from a young age. We don't exactly know his name, neither his real age, but he's young, he's working the tavern, he's homeless, and he's taken in by some nice people who loves God and do charity in Christian charity. And so they're taking him in. He's a Christian too, a very, very strong believer, and he doesn't like the heretics, and he is very fond of the Pope and the right religion. And so he meets these people, and we get inspired along the way by their way of talking, their secrets, and especially this Atto Milano and his explorations in the tunnels beneath the city, and the two very, very strange, ugly figures they found down there, who are digging for historic artifacts and treasures, and the way they follow them, and their night trips, and they have to be back so in order not to be discovered. And the boy is helping this Atto Milano by going into the rooms of the others, trying to listen to their talks and elicit information from them. So there is a spy novel in all this. There is like a James Bond character. We have also a kind of Sherlock Holmes character, as the book itself mentions in the beginning, because it's memoirs of this boy found much later. I know this all can be confusing, but if you give it time, you will find it's a worthwhile story. Also, the language, very flourishing, variations in using the words, even words you will have to look up in the dictionary, I say, because they're really using some terminology from the Latin phrases, medical phrases, and phrases from pharmaceutical knowledge. But it was very inspiring to read anyway, because then you understand how all this like comes to be. And the whole book is about a secret weapon they're trying to find, that you won't imagine what it is. A secret weapon in that time. Yes, every time and every period of life have had its secret weapons. And it's very peculiar, because I remember when I was young, and in the 90s, and we had all this about the rockets and the Cold War, and we read about it in history. It's like, wow, everything before us is non-existence. It's like here and now. What is the weapons of today? What's the espionage of today? What are people seeking to gain control and power? The sources of money and sources of weaponry to stay on top. And this is all that meant anything to us as young people, I think, for many millions. But when you read a historic drama like this, and you can connect it with the time to be now, you will understand maybe more about who you are as a human being. This is one of the best takeaways for me in the book, about this young guy. They assume is called Francesco, but we don't really know. He never gives up his name. He just writes his memoir about what happened in those 9 days and evenings in September 11, between September 11, September 25, or 20, and then 20 to 25, surrounding the days where the Turks were knocking on the doors of Vienna. And there are a lot of intrigues going on at the same time between the papacy, and the French king, the Sun King, as it was called, Ludwig XIV, one of the most famous kings in the history of France, and also infamous maybe for some people. Anyhow, what does all this relate to us reading a historic account of who were the corrupt and who were the right persons? Well, what does it matter? It's 500 years away. France has changed. Even the papacy had changed, and we know a lot more about also problems, deficiencies, and the accounts of their, what can you say, the scandals that we hear about from time to time, but also the good sides of both. And this is like the way the book is written. It's like very, very clearly religious passionate. The boy is. He's on the right path. He's religious. He's keeping to the traditions. He gets shocked and is in awe about people with wrong values or spying on others. But then slowly, following this Atto Milano, he starts to understand. Because this Atto Milano is, without telling him directly, but later, he's spying for the Sun King. And he's trying to find a guy who really lived in history called Nicolas Fouquet. And this Fouquet was told about by Anatole France in his account of France's history. And they're using him as a figure in this book. And I think a lot of what was told could have been very, very true. The same with the famous scientist called Kirchner. And so we have some historic people here. We have the Pope, we have and it's all seen through the lenses of this small, simple servant in that tavern under the siege they are under, because they cannot go out, because of the plague. So, for me personally, it's like, okay, I've had my failures in life, and big ones, and I look at it sometimes and say, what have I accomplished? This is a beautiful book these people have given us here. I've always inspired and wished to be a writer like this, but at the same time, it was not really my goal to become a writer. So you ask yourself, like that young kid, what am I going to be? He's going to be a publicist. He want to grow up and become a writer, some kind of journalist or someone who follow the account of incidents and people and history. But you ask yourself the same, what have I accomplished? And when you look death in the eyes, and I think it's crawling nearer as older you get, there is no way out. You know, when you are young, you maybe would see, oh, maybe I would die tomorrow, but most likely I would live many more years. So you have to rush and run and do something. And this is what this young man is doing in his life. He's trying to achieve something, learning from Atto Milano and the others, directly and indirectly. And he put this account together later in his life, and it was amazing account, of course, told to us from the pen of Monaldi and Sorti, this man and wife, who are also very much into literature and historic accounts. And I can say, I say, wow, that's beautiful. I know they must have spent many hundreds of hours, thousands of hours maybe, in libraries and shelves and some books they have to dig up and some historic accounts to make sure that what they have been writing is correct. And then they have to put it together, have to use the right language for it. I'm not saying it's impossible or not approachable for people who know the art of writing. They know how to put these things together, and I understand. I have a sense of it. But to achieve such a book and also the other books they've written, it's beautiful. It's beautiful, and I know many people would think, well, they're lucky to have achieved this, but it has also cost them. Everything costs. This is also one of the main thing taking away from the book by this boy. Like, he's lived this adventure and drama, but it has also cost him. It's cost him, first of all, his way of looking at the world, his naivety. Oh my God, how I went back to my own self as a young man, very fearsome and very like one-sided, naive, idealistic activist, and who also like got known in a lot of places, both for good and for evil. I don't know why. Never meant to do harm in a way, but at the same way, we harm ourselves sometimes by the way we look at the world and things and how we believe like things are. It's like we want it to be that God just supports the righteous and the bad people gets wasted and they lose. And my own story tells me, well, here I am. I'm more of a loser than a winner, and I lost everything. And it's like the same with these people. They're trying to live in a world, the people in the story, they're trying to live in the world of their own that very much resembles our world and will resemble any world that we're gonna be as long as we think the way we do as humans. I don't know if we're gonna make a shift at one point or another in the future and become much more like different in our way of thinking. But as long as it's the same mechanisms, it's the same game. As long as we don't really get beyond that, it will stay the same. It's a corrupt game. It's a game of power. It's a game of intrigues, and it's a game where the one who are both lucky and best at deceiving will win the prizes. I wasn't best at deceiving. I told my whole story in another account in YouTube. But when I look at this book, it just inspires me back to look at what was I trying to achieve as a young man and where am I now, 47 years old, getting near my death. It could be this year as well. I don't know. Sometimes I feel it crawls near. And when I look at this skull in this book, it makes me also more and more aware that, well, my time could be running out, and then sadness comes over me to say, oh, what have I really achieved? Have I changed something in the world? Have I done good? Have I created something? No, I was part of kind of an activism to support some kind of ideology that belonged to some kind of like, what can you say, the Turkish Osmanic Islamic empire's way of thinking. And then I looked deep into that and shifted from it. And I looked at the European heritage as well, but of course I couldn't go and do the same on the other side, trying to just defeat the other side. I had grown beyond that to see that, well, this whole fight is a game, and even inside these groups, they have internal fightings, and they try to conquer each other's posts and powers. The same is exactly the topic for this book. It's the Sun King who's trying to defeat the Habsburgans, the Vienna Empire, by using the Turks or making an alliance. And this is historically known that the Turks had different alliances at that time with the Swedish, with the French, and at some point also with uh, some of the other European powers, and even got help from the papal state and offered help to the papal state, or the papal state asked them for help in dire state situations because they were the biggest power in earth, and they of course would go and use that to their advantage. That's what made them crawl all the way up to the to make a siege on Vienna, that almost worked out. And so, if you look at the Turkish camp, you will see, well, they have their internal fightings and their fightings with their brothers on the other side. The same with these European powers, the Sun King and the Pope, the corrupt Pope, who is actually working against some others, and some others working against him, and then the intrigues of the man and woman, like the French Queen, Maria Theresa, who is opposed to her husband because the way he treated her. So she's trying also to support her old family from the Austrian Empire because they were married into each other. And then you have people of reformist ideas and very enlightened ideas. I like this Englishman who gets ill in the beginning, who is quoting Francis Bacon at that time, where it was the idea that that only what can be proved scientific that should be held in account as a fact, and not what we think or what we fear as superpowers surrounding us. At the same time, the book more than hints that we cannot live without superpowers. So we are always surrounded by some kind of magic, some kind of astrology, numerology, and that's why in every generation, even in ours, you will be surprised to know that a lot of presidents and people in high places go and consult some people who know about numbers and astrology and how the planets are aligned or against each other to know whether they should make their move or not. And even Christian religious people would go and do that, because somehow when you live long enough and read long enough and meet enough of people, which you do in this book through the eyes of this young man, you will learn that the world is affected by more than just what we see in the pure scientific way. And knowledge will always have a blind side to it. Like today, we see ourselves making big progress, and of course we are. And then we can laugh at this doctor called Cristofano, who is going around in that house, in that tavern, trying to heal people with different herbs and put a lot of things together, as you've read in the medical books that were delivered to him at that time. This is experiences. He's just building on what others had experienced and what worked and what didn't work. And you can say you can trust him really a lot along the road, because he can see that religion and science does not oppose each other. And this is also an old doctrine. It's not even his or a Christian doctrine. It was taken from the old philosophers from Baghdad, who also tried to find a kind of a bridge between the religious dogmas in the Islamic flourishing civilization at that time, in 7th and 800, and the scientific approaches that came from the Greek, and they were also building on, like trying to look into nature and how it works, and the planets, how they work, and everything. And that's why they build scientific schools, and schools that gave a lot to the later generations in all kind of medicines. So what the Arabs did at that time and the Persians did at that time is very much lost in Europe today, and it's not really acknowledged as the foundation that really gave Europe a lot to build on. later by many people. They just want to see it as the dark ages, the enemy, the people we hate, the people we don't like. And the book like cracks this a bit open, not because they're talking about the Arabs, not because they're favoring any of this, but it's because you can't avoid understanding things they're not saying. You see, you read the lines, then you can read between the lines, and you can read behind the lines. And by reading behind the lines, you can't avoid but noticing that, well, the science of healing people, doctors' work, had a lot of blind sides to it. He was using like equipment and herbs and different mixtures in a way that doctors today would laugh at and would take to their head and say, "Oh my God, he's killing the patients." And we get these remarks from the boy himself sometimes say it's a wonder that these people would survive this doctor's the good doctor's way of treating them. But in the same way it works, and it's not totally beside the point, because he was building on the right experience, knowing that religion and science is two part of the same nature. It's two part of the same creation from God, and magnetism in the center of it all. Magnetism was at that point also a big issue. Um, so by reading this historic, accurate account, you get all sorts of inspirations, also about today and how we treat patients. Today we can criticize the industry of the pills, people living on pills and drugs and chemistry, and even the very fine operations are not available to anyone. They are available to people with money and not always succeeding as we think they are. So in every age, we still get these blind spots. There is always more and more and more of the unseen, unknown, uncharted terrain in both medicine, pharmaceuticals, and nature, and also astrology and planets and planet science. So we keep shedding light on new things, thinking now we got to the edge of the world, and then just to discover the Earth is round, and then just to discover it's a small ball in a big space, and just to discover this space we cannot really understand its limits, and so it's like a game of keep going and we have to keep going. It's not because we should stop, but some people, they will just rely on the religious science, and this is what the book also is pointing at. They will just read in the Bible or in the holy books and whatever is written of commentaries about that, and see it as the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, and nothing beyond it can really be right if it contradicts it. And then you get this clash later on between the scientists and the religious authorities, because some of the religious authorities got too blind and got too scared of losing authority instead of giving way for the science. And the scientists got in a big shaky doubt about the religious fundaments. And that's where we are today in Europe. It's a big continuing clash where people who go more to the religious side are seen as backward, and people who do not really notice science and laws in nature, and that we have to empirically prove things to be right. And at the same time, what the good doctors and scientists really not easily give into is that what they think they know, the limit of the world, the edge of it, is not the truth. It's not totally the truth. There is something they cannot explain, they just don't talk about it, and they want to just prove that religion is backward and not right. And this is not really any helpful for us. So as long as we keep thinking the way we do, as naive persons like this young boy who thinks that, well, religion is the medicine, just put some oil on the person and pray, or seeing the other approach like this Englishman who gets ill, saying it's nonsense. You have to follow the scientific methods, because the body is built on scientific biological evidence, and we have to see what helps it, what doesn't, and react to that empirically. And that way, step by step, slowly, we will get enough knowledge to know how to treat patients, how to avoid them dying, and so on. And this is exactly the case with the plague, the Black Plague, the pest. these small unseen organisms that some were already putting forward as a theory at that time and were shut up also by the church authorities to say, oh, what are you talking about? It's unseen, unseen, unseen organisms. But that proved to be right later because the people with scientific approach and people with religious approach who had a scientific mind or understanding, they kept pushing to understand what's going on, because everything that's going on is a part of the creation. We just don't see it or don't understand it. And this is what I love about this book, because it gives you this tipping balance. You don't tip to one side too much or the other, and it doesn't even go into these discussions. That's why I'm saying it's a brilliant book the way it's written, because it's giving you all these hints to the limit of your knowledge. So everyone who reads this book will just get the limit of his or her knowledge. They won't understand more than they know. This is very crazy to say, but this is my belief. If you read this book, you won't understand what you don't know. It's like if you don't know anything about medicine, you will read all this terminology and the doctor's words as volapük, as something that you don't really understand. You'll just jump over it, say, okay, whatever he's talking about. Did he treat him or not? And you just go on. And the same with the terms of the herbs he's using, the mixtures, the different stuff. But if you know about them, you'll become clever. And so if you know something about religion and history, you will be much aware to that point as well in the other side of the story. And so in many ways, the book just inspires you behind the lines also to see in a different way. I love this quote. It's not what you think, but how you think, that this Atomelano tells this young man who is following him on this trip during that hold up there. Right? So there's a lot to take from the story, and I won't ruin the end, of course, for anyone. It's up to you to read it, but it's a highly recommendable book and story, because it combines many things. I also like the way the boy is in his virtues. Like, he's trying to avoid sin, he's trying to pray to God, he's trying to live a good, righteous life to get into God's mercy and heaven. And this is also lost today on many of us, where we don't really believe or want to believe, or think that if we believe, well, that we will lose the virtue of life, the beauty of it. We want to do the sins without thinking of the consequences today. And we want to go do whatever we want, telling ourselves there is no consequence, there is no God, there is no punishment, there is nothing. Nothing will happen, do whatever you like. We like that, don't we? And because we like that, I love how the boy is. He's naive, he's just not lived the corrupt side of the world yet. And even his continuous attraction and meeting with Chloridia, this very the courtesan, the lady, she's stuck with them too, and she stays a secret most of the book. We don't know who she is. You have to guess, and I won't tell you. But it's like he's getting in touch with his manhood and also the corrupt side of life as it can be, and you get to know that the most Christian king, Ludwig XIV, well, he's punished people into prison. He's had a lot of ladies. He's had a lot of what they call bastard sons. And anyway, he wasn't condemned the same way as ordinary people would have been condemned if they had any kind of relation outside their marriage or got a kid. They would be very severely and harshly punished. So it also tells you, the book is not speaking about these issues directly, but this is what you can read between the lines, saying, well, it tells you how corrupt and double moralistic the whole affair is with religion and life. It's like they're trying to control something that seems uncontrollable, and they're trying also to build an idea that you can live virtuously while all this corruption is going on at the same time. Nobody is as they seem to be in this story, especially not the abbot Atomelano, who comes as a highly recommended priest and knowledgeable of the holy book and should be pious. He's spying and he's singing and he's a castrate singer and he's many, many, many other things, God knows than what. But you get sympathy for him during the story because he's using his rationale very highly, and he's very, very strong in uncovering the plots and what's going on. And he teaches the boy many, many things along the way. This is very beautiful. So we also see the development of this boy, how he changes from being that scared little unknowledgeable servant to suddenly have a very, very strong insight in some of the biggest intrigues in the history of his time. Um, what topics he gets by, political intrigues, man and wife trouble, the courtesan, the men in hiding in that place with the different views, and they are fugitives from something, and some are pursuing something, and some are hiding some knowledge that's forbidden. And wow, what he encounters is just a huge experience, and that's lovable. And I, as a person, just identified with him, and I couldn't stop the thrill of reading it. Now the book is a bit old, but doesn't matter. That's what books are for. They can last for decades and centuries. And then you sit back and ask yourself what you got out of it. Well, I got out of it beautiful language. I like the historic settings. I like the place they're in, they're confined to. I like the personality of that Atom Milano. He could have been an old time kind of James Bond or Sherlock Holmes style, but in his own way. He's not really these persons, but we get the sense that he has these abilities in the same way. Very highly skilled person with a big charisma and a piercing look and ability to deceive you by telling you the half truth, the quarter truth, part of it, only what's necessary, and leading you along the whole story, and so on and so on. And so you get also an insight of the big intrigues that happens and still happens and will happen between people with power. It never rests. There is not a moment of easiness for these people. Heavy is the head that carries the crown, because they have always to be aware, and they get jealous of people close to them, and they don't know what to do, and they have to listen to a lot of gossip, should they believe it or not, and they have to trust their senses and instincts. Sometimes they go wrong. And in my opinion, well, in God's eyes, in life's eyes, if you go wrong about just one person, you have condemned yourself. So that's why they say it's a curse to carry the burden of power, because when you go wrong, and you will go wrong to protect your power or what you think is the right thing, then you are cursed like everybody else to have carried the injustice of life with you. And that's what makes the whole thing turn for many people, like what I can say, morally and ethically. They will say, okay, if we can't escape it, we will just take it all. We'll take the whole bunch. We'll try to fight over this power. We will just become as animalistic as we can, try to uphold our power and push everybody aside. Well, may the best animal or strongest person or most deceivable person and live. And we're anyway going to get punished for it. Well, what's the difference between a small fire and a big fire, and so on? And so that's what happens to us. We get broken morally sometimes because of we see how impossible it is to be a human on the right path, to be a naive person for a long time. This boy got many shocks during the story. Is the king really conspiring like that? Is his wife the queen behind this? You think, could this guy be somebody else than he's telling us? Could the Jesuit priest be somebody else? Is he trying to hide something? How could a father read in astrology? How could he believe in the numbers, and so on and so on? Why do he visit this courtesan? What's going on behind the lines as a human? So we have these layers of keeping everything on the surface clean and nice, and then the layers behind it where we hide the dirt. It's like going into the sewers where the rats are. But should that mean that we should bring the sewers to the surface and the rats to the surface? This is a thing that I've been thinking about, the symbolic of it in the story, that they're trying to tell us. The story is very beautifully written from the eyes of this boy who's really trying to hold to the right faith, the right morals, being honest, and staying in the good faith of especially the Pope and the big priests, and respecting their positions as if they're given by God, as if because they are there because of virtues, because God has chosen them to be the good persons. But he will get shocked, and he gets shocked like one by one. He discovers they're not they're not morally right, and they will never get there. He didn't even get there. He didn't write his memoirs by staying out of the business, but by putting his nose into it, by helping Atto, by going into this deceivable play of trying to elicit information from people, visiting their rooms while they're out, sneaking into the doctor's house, uh, going on this adventure with Atto. So he also had to leave his nativity behind. He had to go over some kind of line of respecting others in order to gain the story, the adventure. And so it seems practically impossible for us humans. But does that mean, as I was trying to say, that we shouldn't bring that we should bring all the dirt from the underneath up to the surface? I don't think. And this is where we are going wrong in the modern time, in my opinion, that we can see that we are fallen morally. We never got rid of the courtesans or the whores or the diseases. We never got rid of the intrigues. People in high power could be the most corrupt, and so on and so on. So why not bring it to the surface, all of it? Let the rats and the sewers be on the surface. And this is what's going on sometimes in the modern world, that the policies are trying to take us in directions that, well, let's by all means break down the rest of any moral that people have. Let's just show them this world is not, it's not perfect, it's not even clean. It's dirt all around. Nobody is good, nobody is clean, nobody is fine. Let everybody just shows his ugly side on the street. Uh, why hide that you are a cheater if you're a politician? Why hide that you are going behind your wife's back? Why hide that you're using your money to gain power and access, and so on and so on and so on? So everybody, from the petty thief to the biggest religious and political figures trying to keep clean, well, they will say, okay, well, life is full of scandals. And this is what I see. We are like breaking down these limits of moral, to say that we're not even shocked anymore. You know, the media is trying to shock us with, oh my God, they found him on a beach with this and that lady. Oh, she didn't have her top on, blah, blah, blah. Oh, this guy, he actually approached a girl who wasn't even 18 yet. She was only 17 and 7 months, and she was in that dancing club, and he approached her, and he's a politician. He's going to run for mayor. And they want to shock us with something that's not true. And so how could we be shocked? Because we say, okay, what was she doing there? And why not? Who wouldn't be affected by a young lady who's trying to lure you into her charm? Are you not human or what as a politician? Are you not human as a religious man, and so on and so on? So by trying to, my opinion, like to break this down, I think we're making a big mistake. And the same is going on the other side, the Turks and beyond them, the Persians, the Arabs, and the Eastern and North African places, where they also have this kind of, similar to the Christian morale of keeping things clean on the surface. It's also breaking down. So that's why it's lovable to go back in history and to see how all this actually existed, but underneath the surface, people were kept in their beliefs, their faith, their way of living, trying to live up to the commandments, to try to avoid the sin, and try not to throw themselves into the pit just because they made the sin, but look for a way to get out of it and to become a better person. At the same time, the blur in this book falls, like the blur on our eyes, like the young man. It falls. And everybody who doesn't know or see, especially young people who would like to read such a book, would understand that it's impossible to live in a world that's not corrupt. You will find the corruption very close to home. And whatever you're fighting for or living for, well, you will find somebody using you, abusing you, or will abuse and use you for their own goals and means. So even you're clever enough to go into that fight and try to fight for your own good as well, and find yourself a position for as long as that holds, because you will also be chopped down by some other people who are stronger and more cheatable, more cheating than you, or else you withdraw. And this is what happens to many people who gets to understand the world really deep, and they withdraw. They try to make a spiritual transformation, leaving the world behind, all its power and game. They just like sign out of the whole game and say, I'm not part of anything anymore. I don't know anything. I just want to live a small, acceptable life the rest of the days I've got. This is also where I've reached in my life, actually. Sometimes I feel and I ask myself, what have I achieved in my life? I tried as a young man really to do something. I had big aspirations, trying to change the world, change the systems, to do something, bring the idealistic ideas more into people's life. Was I the idealistic guy to do that? I wasn't. Looking back at my younger self, I wasn't. I was just like this boy, naive and slowly getting more and more aware of the cheat and deceive around me, and I couldn't maybe handle it right. So I also stepped in the mud, but also washed my feet off afterwards and got out of it. And so now I'm looking, okay, maybe my greatest achievement is just to be able to read these books and understand that I actually got a deeper awareness that many people never gets or never have found, by understanding that the game needs a sacrifice. If you're willing to make it, you're cursing yourself, and if you can bring yourself out of it, you are in a way finding the road to some kind of salvation. I don't know what you will think about a salvation like that, but and at the same time, how long can we stay out of the world? Like I'm sitting and looking at the world rushing by with all its power, and maybe I'm just waiting for the next opening and loop to bring myself into the picture as an opposing force to something, as a correcting force, as an enlightening force. I'm not sitting idle by, because I always and will always carry this mission with me in my heart, that I would like to see the world just a step better to what's more good, more right. And I'm not saying that good and right is necessarily in one specific religion or idea or culture. No, I don't think like that anymore. I'm just aware that we always have to keep the hope and the light of getting in touch with our human side. Uh, and if I can help to that, then I'm achieving something anyway. And so, what I've achieved looking at this book and this story, well, being aware that death is around the corner, life is corrupt, it has beautiful stories. Some people are really good at telling them, and uh, and we all participate in one way or another to our and others' life, and some succeed, some not. I would say listen to your instinct. You will know whether you are. Don't listen to your ego and say I can do it, but listen to your instinct and see if you really feel that things are going the way you want to see yourself in, or are you getting chopped, trashed, and all that. Doesn't mean you have to resign. And this is a very difficult decision in our life, because some people resigns and that's the right thing to do, and others they go on and they keep fighting and they get all chopped down. They die with their idea or ideal or their egoistic goals, whatever it is. Some people die for much less, small petty theft, or trying to get a power from someone by corrupting someone. They get caught and they get out of the picture, not because they are caught because the rest are innocent. They are caught because they weren't good enough to hide their tracks. And so the bigger fish, the bigger shark, is just getting in the way of them achieving their goals, and so they lose, go into prison or die or whatever. So people lose for a lot less. So should one not fight for the world, for the happiness, for the brightness of connecting with our humanity? What I think is a goal we should achieve is to change the way we think, not what we think, but the way we think. And this is a big and deep goal. I don't think I'm going to participate to, but I hope someone out there is trying. And I know it seems scary for really many people. How should we change the way we think? Are we not thinking in the right way? Well, obviously not, because if we were, we wouldn't be stuck in the same game situations. eating each other like animals, depriving each other of dignity, doing all the things that we see as idealistic and not realistic. And well, the world is deeply corrupt, and a mud bath of blood and sweat and pain. But there is also the other side of the world, and it's not only the corrupt people who gets by. And these are the stories that we need to have more of and show more of. I don't know. But this is some of the inspiration I got from this book. There's a lot more, and even if you don't get all these inspirations and aspirations, well, uh, at least you will enjoy the reading. It's very exciting, very beautiful. You will really enjoy. You will know what to say. You'll taste both the writing, the world, the kid's mind, the things that unravels slowly. And you have to be patient. Maybe the first 20, 30, 40 pages won't be fulfilling. You won't understand the plot. You won't see where this is going. But be patient and you will get there eventually.